But I'm not asking for pity. I didn't know I had the power I could fire a fist. We can break this stability to keep our city clean. Black and Hispanic babies, feel by the millions. Planned Parenthood exhibits to raise the debt ceiling. Communities enslaved in economic change. They won't teach us liberty because it ruins the game. We're here for the people, make way for the truth. You ain't smarter than us just cause you dressed in a suit. Where your actions, what you doing? Please show me the work. I can show you every day where the people are hurt. For the people I serve, in the name of my God, county officials better move if they're not doing their job. This conservative tsunami is sweeping the nation. We the people get loud, let them hear the frustration. I'm not scared to see this because I'm a leader. Never stop with the Christ, let them know I'm a believer.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the latest installment of the Frankie Nieto Show. As always, I'm your lovable but quite irritating host, Frankie Nieto. As always, thank you for joining me here. I want to begin tonight's broadcast before we get into our special guest, Steve. I want to begin tonight with the quote. This comes from John F. Kennedy. Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future. And that was John F. Kennedy. Like I said, tonight we're going to talk to Steve O'Brien of Texas Hill Country Communications and Networks. As a lot of people know that have listened to the show before, know Steve, big supporter of the Frankie Nieto Show, and pretty much all things Frankie. I guess I could go that far and say that. But we're not going to have him talking about me for a change. We're going to be talking about Steve and what Steve has going on with Fredericksburg Linux, along with exactly what Texas Hill Country Communications and Networking is. Steve, are you with us?
I'm here, Frankie. How are you tonight?
Dude, I'm great as always, but I think I might just because I'm high. But
that's interesting.
I know it's
things are going really good with us. It's an interesting quote that you led with, and I'd actually like to address Linux to that quote. So in our computing environments, we've been doing computers for a lot of years. We can look back on all the operating systems, the Windows machines, the Apple machines, and they were all really good, right? And if we look back, we can find lots of flaws in them. But the whole Linux model has actually, that is the future. And so that's kind of why I've been heading down the Linux path for the past, probably about 12 years since I first tried to install Linux. And now in the Hill Country, I've managed to actually get an install base that can use the operating system and use it normally. So we've decided that it was time to bring everything together and start a user group and start showing people and having a community come around an operating system. Instead of buying into a corporate operating system like Windows that requires you to buy a new, different version every 4 years, I don't know.
And then,
I think there's
and then they in themselves have their own faults, so to give you reason, that little cattle prod to buy next, the next updated version, so they can sell you their program software. For computer novice like myself, for instance, I had no idea what Linux was until you introduced it to me. So could you go ahead and give us, for some of us out there that don't know exactly what Linux is and how is it a more, in your words, it's the future of operating systems. It's actually the present, I guess, in a lot of ways. I mean, we're using it, you're using it.
Who knows?
So a little rundown of that.
who knows if it's the future. One of the futures is a more open source, a free operating system. Now, free does not mean monetarily free. Free means the ability to tweak and use something. So if I were to sell you a program for your computer, whatever operating system you were running, right, and it was $20, but I allowed you to modify that and go in there, and I, by good faith, gave you $20, right, and you sold this thing to me, and I modified it, that would be a free operating system or a free word processor, because you'd be free to change the name of the menu that says File, Open to anything you like. Let's say I didn't like it saying File, I'd change it to Dog. I'm free to actually modify this word processor however I want. In a closed operating system, if you found an improvement, now I'm not saying that changing, on a normal word processor, the word File, up in the top left corner to be Dog is good for it, but if I wanted to do it, I could, because it's free. It's free for me to modify and change and do as I wish. Where today's programs and operating systems, this is the way they are, right? And you can't change that. You can't change the underlying code. In an open source environment, kind of like Linux, and Linux is one of a few actual operating systems. It is the most popular, and it's been around since 1991 when the first modifications came through. Did that answer your question at all, Frankie?
Mute. I had my mic on mute because I'm making notes here. Because, like I said, I'm a novice to this too, so I'm learning as we go, which is, I guess.
An operating system is the thing that connects all those little parts that we hear about on TV and in the radio, your CPU, your hard drive, and that box to the monitor, right? They have their own little program in there that's a basic hardware level program. Then we decide what we want, what operating system we want to run on them. Now, Linux is an option on any PC that you have, right? There's different versions of Linux that would run on even older systems. You remember that XP box that was lightning fast in the, early or mid-90s? All of a sudden, you have that same machine, but it's really slow. But the day you got it, it was like lightning fast. What happened to it? Well, in a lot of cases, you had like Windows XP. A lot of people liked XP, and a lot of people liked 95, but they were, they had some inadequacies to them. That was because the programming standards were different, and they hadn't refined a lot of stuff. So you can sit there and get that performance back by installing an operating system that's been programmed to maximize that. But the hardware itself, any box that you got, an Apple, a Dell, a Gateway, or a laptop, can run Linux. There's even little tiny things, a little key fob that is a computer that'll run Linux. A lot of TVs run Linux. All Android phones are basically Linux. So it seems to be the future at this point. But I wouldn't rule out a lot of its major competitor would be FreeBSD or OpenBSD, which is another open source project that allows you to change things and modify things and is intellectually free.
Cool. All right. I think that covers that. So what is this term cyberspace?
Cyberspace. So, you know how on the internet, if you communicate between your computer to, let's say Yahoo, right? Your computer opens a connection to Yahoo. Well, there's eavesdropping that's going on all in between. So different people have different reasons to listen to your traffic, and you'll have Google listening to that kind of traffic to build up metrics on who you are as an individual so they can, like, market you differently. And I got to turn down this volume because that's distracting. But cyberspace builds a separate network. It's sometimes referred to as the dark nets. Now, the dark nets are an encrypted network that exists on top of the Internet that you have to connect into that allow you to move around the Internet and go to a place. Like if I were to connect to a cipher net, it would encrypt my session between my PC and the cipher net, dark net as you would, like Tor. Tor is one of the biggest dark nets out there. You probably heard about that in the news before about a group of traffickers. I guess they were drug traffickers and all sorts of stuff that got caught in Tor. They're called Silk Road. And they moved into Tor after they were sitting there selling whatever, drugs. I don't know. They were selling a lot of illegal stuff online. And when the NSA was tracking them, at the end game, they'd been tracked the entire time. They jumped into Tor, into the cipher net, to try to hide their tracks, completely.
Right.
But the NSA followed them in, and at this point, we don't know exactly how the NSA caught them, but it probably wasn't going into the cipher net. There's been a lot of, talk about how the U.S. government or the NSA has cracked Tor, the major cipher net, but it seems like a lot of talk and a lot of work. When you connect from your PC into, they call it CipherNet because it's encrypted. The word cipher is encrypted. So you connect into this network up there, and when you go out, nobody knows who you are coming into their server. So as I hit Google, they don't know that I'm coming from Time Warner cable box number 123. They just know somebody's asking a question, and I could be coming out from, let's say, New Zealand. Right? Somebody from New Zealand, well, we know that's a Tor exit node, so we don't know anything about it. So it allows you some anonymity. Sorry, I get that word wrong a lot.
Right. Well, in other words, it's like how was it John McAfee was talking about it? It's kind of like making the internet the way it was supposed to be. You had your privacy. You were secure in logging on and browsing the net and using it like you wanted to without worrying that somebody's pinpointing every little thing you're doing.
Right.
Am I right in what you're saying, Bill?
Well, yeah.
About what
yeah,
space is and the dark nets are.
What McAfee was talking about is a lot like the Debian project called Freedom Box. Now, Freedom Box combines a bunch of technology, and it's actually currently under development over at Debian. And Debian is a Linux distribution, right? They make Linux. So part of the stuff that they're writing into their code, every single computer that runs Linux will be Freedom Box, the same kind of logic that McAfee wants to put into a $100 set-top box. This thing will encrypt and join a network with a bunch of computers around the world, and you play hot potato. And so everybody's traffic will come out every other point. So you can choose how you can participate on the Internet. If you just want to connect to the Internet and browse the Internet, that's fine. Every single website will see you. You go to Yahoo, they know you're customer one at timewarner.net. You go to Google, customer one, Time Warner. If that actually matters to you, which is kind of crazy because a lot of people say, well, it doesn't really matter. Well, the whole reason this stuff exists is because different countries decide what they want to censor from different people that live within the geographical boundaries. So England won't let their people view certain websites. So around their section of the Internet, it's walled off. They can't access that content. Well, the cipher nets allow you to go with your computer, connect into the cipher net, go outside of England, and access a page in like the United States that has material that they don't want you to see. This is true everywhere. And in fact, the biggest thing that ever happened to the cipher nets was the, whatever they called it, the Egyptian coup d'etat, I believe it was, where they overthrew the government and they shut down the Internet and everybody went, whoa, how did they shut that down? We've got to deal with that. So out of that sprung an open source project called Freedom Box that decided that its goals was to allow every device to connect to other devices and find Internet connections and then route traffic through. It would sit there, and if a government decides that they don't want you to go to Twitter, they don't want you to go to Google, well, you won't go to Twitter or go to Google in that country. You go to Sweden, and from Sweden you'll go to Google, and then Google will go back to Sweden to your computer. It'll all be encrypted, right? And they won't have a choice. So the Freedom Box will allow you to do that. Now, John McAfee, he's on that same page, right? And he might be able to make it happen on a commercial product, but the Linux operating system will have that ability natively, within a few years. And, quite honestly, Freedom Box, it's going to replace a lot more than that. And I didn't want to get on a Freedom Box, high horse here. But
that's fine. I kind of opened the door for it. But that does save us something. Hopefully we can talk a little bit more about it. So we're getting close to the end of the time we have on Blog Talk, Steve. Couple questions, though. What are some of the things going on with FBG Linux? And, of course, how can people get a hold of you and get involved with the FBG Linux?
Okay. Well, that's easy enough. If you're on Facebook, you can go to FBG Texas Linux User Group. You just type in, Linux and FBG, and we'll come right up there on Facebook. We have our first meeting. That'll be going on November 14th this year. It'll be between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And we're going to be talking a lot more about Tails Linux, CipherNet, and how you could actually use that to protect yourself against eavesdropping from all these different websites that want to collect metrics. This will be a reoccurring event occurring on the second Thursday of every month. Next month we'll be talking about school stuff and education in Linux, and we'll continue that kind of meme, and I don't exactly know the things that we're going to be talking about, but that's up to the whole group.
Okay. Heck yeah, man. Well, that was cool.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, man.
Oh, dude, of course. Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's always fun chatting with you. We haven't had a chance to chat in a while. I'm going to just go ahead and read a couple of headlines. Hey, unless you want to talk about one of these headlines, have you heard about the resident pushback on the city ordinance to they were going to restrict, kind of, like in homeowner associations where they tell you can only have a vehicle parked here for so long, and then, or you can only have the vehicle parked on your property if it's inside of a shed or it's covered or it's unobscured. Everything has to be aesthetically pleasing. Have you heard about this?
You told me about this once before, a few weeks ago. Tell me what happened. What's going on in the pushback?
Apparently, what was it? Last Monday, at the last city council meeting this Monday, it wasn't even on the agenda But a few people did show up, and they were kind of irritated. Like, one woman even used the whole homeowner association comparison, and she's like, I chose not to live in a neighborhood like that, you know? And because the city that are pushing it, of course, because it's just a form of revenue generation, is they're, you know, it's another reason they can write a ticket and make you have a permit and things of this nature. Give you permission to do with what you want with your own property and make money at it. But anyways, but they're citing that it's for aesthetic reasons. That's not the first thing they say, but because of safety and, you know, things of that nature. And of course, they want Fredericksburg to look a certain way. And a couple people though there had said, one lady was like, she saw no safety concerns with it whatsoever when they had people working there and trailers were parked there overnight. People were neat and efficient. And then it actually, when you know, let me see, her exact words were, she talked about this woman, I didn't see her name in here, but she talked about the fact that with these remodelings and people constantly doing work, and the fact that, in all honesty, when you go down most Fredericksburg, there was different housing styles. You know, you'd have an older looking style house and something that obviously was newly remodeled. And it goes from taking a house that's a $200,000 home and turns it into a $527,000 home as far as property value, which is helping the city. So the city shouldn't go ahead and try to tell you what you can do on your own property. Is what a lot of people seem to be up in arms about it is the fact that here's this city, another form of government that's overreaching and trying to tell you what to do on your own property.
Right. And we are living in Fredericksburg, right? We have a lot of trailers and a lot of old trucks and stuff like that, and some of the property owners, you know, I don't know who's pushing this through. It sounds like Agenda 21 stuff, but you know, they don't want you to park a car that's not registered because every car should have the tax paid on it, right? That's about the whole thing. You know, you have to pay a tax, you have to make it clean. In Fredericksburg, everything's about looking good. It's not about anything, but I'm sure everybody's kicking back. I was waiting to hear that. But it hasn't happened, and it's going to go through, right?
Well, like I said, it's not up on the agenda yet. I think it's still a couple weeks off before they're even going to do it. But they got their way with the jail. That's all I know. And so usually,
what group is pushing it? Tell me, from what you told me last time, it's an individual that's pushing this. It's not a group that wants to get this out. It's the sign check, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. This was introduced. The whole parking thing was introduced by the I guess we call her the sign lady. She's the woman in charge of the I guess giving you a permit for your signs and sign ordinance and stuff like that. She's the head code enforcer of signs, I guess. I don't know her bureaucracy title, but I know she has one. I actually met her in court. That's where we got the name, the sign lady. She was quite perturbed that I put up Ron Paul stickers without her permission.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there.
Really mad about that. But no offense, I guess, you know, if my job dignified who I was and identified who I am as a human being, I'd be kind of mad too if somebody didn't ask my permission. But that's neither here nor there, right? But isn't that crazy?
Dude, we've been all over the Ron Paul sticker thing, and how you slice up free speech is still slicing it up. You know, it doesn't matter. But the crazy part is this lady's coming in a professional capacity, right, saying that we need to start doing this. And so we're paying her to have her opinion forced on us, whereas...
Some law. That's what's crazy. It's what they call law, because all of a sudden... Because I guess the way it works in the American system is that laws are what you can get penalized for doing the opposite of. Because that's what how I've come to understand what the word law means in America is it's anything that you can be penalized either physically, monetarily, or emotionally. I don't know if they figured out how to, tax you emotionally, but I'm pretty sure there is a way.
An emotional tax. I think that's what we're going through right now.
You're sad. That will be that'll be 2-cent increase on every $100 value of your property, sir. What? Oh.
Well, I swore to myself earlier tonight I wasn't going to let you drag me into politics. But,
my bad. I mean, it happens. Like I said, I try not to drag people into it. I get stacks of paper sitting in front of me, and it's just funny to read. I thought you would get a kick out of that, too, that this whole thing
I did want to know the conclusion, and I can't wait to... Well, there is no conclusion, right? We're still ongoing.
Yeah, hanging in there. Hopefully.
Like
I think what they're going to do...
thing.
I think what will happen is they'll keep kicking it down the road. They'll take a good old... page out of the handbook and kick it down the road for the next generation. Kick it down the road. We'll kick it down until the summer. Maybe they'll rethink it in the summer. But, yeah, they have... But it's cool with... They got a whole lot of other stuff that's happening in Fredericksburg, politic-wise, too. Should be interesting. Oh, well, we have early voting started. Early voting started where... because there's 9... I know there's 9 constitutional amendments, and then there's 1 local amendment, but that one only applies to the people that live within that jurisdiction, which is fair, because, I mean, I shouldn't tell how people on Harper how to live and how their property should be valued and taxed and rated no more than they should have the ability to tell me about mine. So...
Right.
Yeah, so that the local amendment it's for the what's called Old Justice District 6, which is like Terra Linda, Harper, and I have it somewhere. Yeah, Terra Linda, Harper. It's all laid out, but of course nothing ever works out. But what it is for them to be able to sell beer and wine out there, because it's actually been against the law for them to sell beer and wine out there since before Prohibition, when it went nationwide. Before that, before the 20s, I guess, it was actually, which is really crazy. So yeah, they're trying to get that flipped over, and it's actually being championed, or it was brought to you by a petition of residents in that area and people that actually go out to the Terra Linda estates and eat at the restaurant that's out there. They said that they're kind of annoyed, or not annoyed. They thought it'd be easier if they could just buy their wine there instead of always having to bring their bottles. There would be wine there, which is, I say, yeah, man, that's some more money in the pocket. Let the market, if there's a demand, I mean, don't we live in a free market-based economy? Is that not the principle of this country? Let them. If there's a want and a need, provide it, and you have a means of providing it, make that money. Is that not the way we should be all striving to go to? Does that sound too holistic, greedy, money hungry? I don't know.
Do you really want an answer to that one? Because it's pretty simple.
Kinda.
Hey, you're almost out of time here, if I am right. I need to know, are you going back to jail? Did you get those fines paid off from the
No, we
city
totally
and
took care of it. That's what this whole relaunching and rebranding and rebroadcasting is going, dude. It's finally off my back. I have the receipt that says balance 000. My life is law-free unless I decide to go fight with them.
So you got past the Ron Paul stickers, huh?
Well, no, this one, I got past that a minute ago. That was when I went to jail last time, remember? This fine was from when the cops beat me up, but somehow I resisted them.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I remember that. That's crazy.
And that's what this is, that when I had to pay $2,200 or go to jail for a year. No, I managed to get that. I took care of that last week, actually, last Thursday, or last Friday. No, yeah, last Friday, Went in there, I owed him $750 or $749. I went in there, gave him $750, told him they can keep that dollar as long as it doesn't go to re-electing mills.
Really?
They laughed about it, but they took it, and it was all no incident. It was really happy. And, like, since I've had that off my shoulders, it's been really great. And like I said, that's why we're launching this, and I'm able to actually focus into doing this. I still have a little bit of record time. But as always, Steve, thank you, man, for joining and hanging out, man. It was always a pleasure, bro. Hope we can talk later.
Anytime, man.
Even using our own people to help them exploit us. But behind the mask of efficiency they claim that we need to succeed, they're no better than us. Their economic advertisement was always a lie. A few got rich, but most were given an illusion of wealth, almost as if it was designed for failure. Opportunity comes at the price of the soul and the music. So remember what they are underneath the fancy architecture, glittering rented jewelry, the cars, the IMF loans, the seeds with suicide genes, 20-year contracts and oil blood money. Build your defenses, my independent brothers and sisters. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want. They paint the third world underground as savage and backward, but the superpowers are no less corrupt. They've just learned to disguise it better, because they fix elections too. They embezzle tax money. They go to war for resources. They fund terrorism for their own benefit. And when there's enough at stake, history's taught us that they'll even assassinate their own presidents.